Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I followed what you said very closely, and frankly, I don't see anything in here for the middle class. And I don't know what this great emergency is that we're dragging us up here tonight on just a few hours of notice. We're here under emergency procedures to consider the Republican bill to provide tax cuts for the wealthy. It's Kansas on steroids, and this is the third or fourth time we've tried trickle down. It's never worked before, and it won't work this time. It didn't work when Ronald Reagan cut the taxes. It didn't work when George Bush did that. And now we are making the same mistake again as though we've never learned anything. Making the rich even richer at the expense of the middle class is apparently a literal emergency for this majority. Now, Republicans like to call this effort tax reform, and I think all of us probably in our own minds had an idea of what we thought tax reform would be. We thought about loopholes for people who have all the lawyers and accountants and all the people who are clever enough to get all that done. We thought about corporations and businesses, but we certainly never thought about the middle-class families who are getting reformed to the nth degree. For example, students now, college students, who are paying an interest on their college loans of 9%, which in my opinion is usury to start with, can no longer deduct the interest on those loans. They've been reformed. Nonprofit organizations in this country no longer have any access to tax-free bonds. They've really been reformed. Teachers who supply goods for their classrooms in places where they couldn't have them otherwise will no longer be able to deduct what they spend on that. They've been reformed as well. Homeowners in many states, particularly states like mine, a donor state that forever has sent more money to Washington than it's gotten back, is going to pay a big price for it. Let me give you an example. By increasing the deficit to $1.5 trillion to provide more tax breaks for the wealthy, you are saying to people in all these states and the people I've already mentioned, we're going to get the money from you. Now, New York State, I'll get to that in just a minute. Let me stay with this because I want to really bear down on this part. I want everybody here listening to this tonight, if anybody is, to tell them what they're going to get for that $1.5 trillion that they're going to add to the deficit and that some economists tell us will lead to bankruptcy. This is from the New York Magazine analysis. We could give 4.4 million unemployed Americans a job in public works that pays $15 an hour with that money, a year of work. We give the Department of Housing and Urban Development the funding it needs to end homelessness in America today. We could build a national high-speed rail system and revive our crumbling infrastructure. We could guarantee every worker 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave every year at 66% of their monthly wages. But instead, we're exploding the deficit by $1.5 trillion and actually adding $1.7 trillion to the debt over the next decade when the interest cost is included. Not to tackle any of the priorities I just discussed, but to give the wealthy tax cuts they do not need. And I think Congressman Chris Collins summed up what this is really about when he said, and I quote, "My donors are basically saying, quote, get it done or don't ever call me again," end quote. Well, it's clear the middle class will suffer mightily so the majority can get it done. The bill eliminates state and local tax deduction. I really want to bear down on this one because it's very difficult for many places in the country. For the individuals and families, with the exception of a property tax deduction, which is capped at $10,000. At the same time that it is taking that deduction away from homeowners, it allows corporations to continue deducting that same money with no cap on the property tax deduction, none. There are more than 100 million Americans and 44 million households today that claim this deduction. Nearly everyone who itemizes claims it. In 2015, more than 1/3 of all New Yorkers who filed taxes claimed SALT. Taxpayers in the state deducted $73 billion in 2015 alone. Boy, that is a lot of money for you to put against your deficit to help out the corporations, isn't it? I'm especially troubled the House bill would also abolish a number of tax benefits geared toward making higher education more affordable at a time when college costs are soaring nationwide. It eliminates the student loan interest tax deduction when our young people are already paying interest far too high. Will you think for a moment of how many students, not because corporations coming back and can buy more, they can't buy nearly what they had before because they're going to be pauperized by this new tax reform. So how many students will not be able to go to college at all if this bill goes into effect? And under the guise of streamlining higher education tax benefits, this bill would raise $65 billion off the backs of our college students and the graduate students. It would impact teachers as well as students that we have talked about before. But for the graduate students and postdoctorates particularly, the grant money that they have and the stipend that they are given to live on would be taxable income. And many of them, at least what they're all telling me, is they couldn't possibly afford to go to school under those circumstances. So there goes our seed corn. We already heard from the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Brady, that this will be a closed rule, meaning no member can offer amendments on the floor. And many members, after being told they had until noon tomorrow to get their amendments submitted, had to scramble and possibly even submit incomplete amendments or no amendments at all in an attempt to get their voices even heard on this massive bill. Speaker was asked recently by Fox News' Chris Wallace, quote, "What happened to Paul Ryan, the deficit hawk?" End quote. He answered, quote, "We will have economic models that will show this, that this will help to grow the economy," end quote. Still believing with all his heart in trickle down. Well, I'd love to see those models confirmed by independent, nonpartisan experts, but we don't have any of that tonight to go with this bill. We still don't have a, quote, dynamic score, end quote, from the Congressional Budget Office. That's the exact type of score the Republicans claim will show how this bill will impact the economy. The only place in the United States that does not hold dynamic scoring in contempt is the Republican conference. And yet is the Republican leadership jamming this bill through even without that. You have 9 votes up here to our 4, our 2, 3. It's already not a fair fight. You win every day in the Rules Committee. We come up here and we don't get amendments, we don't get anything, we get one closed rule after another. It is beneath the dignity of this institution for the Republican leadership to pull tricks like we are seeing today. I just heard, I think that the president is making a trip up here to visit with all of you on Thursday, and I'm sure you want to make this welcome home gift to him for his great leadership. But all we're doing today is rewarding the wealthy and the contributors that fund your campaigns, and it is shameful. It angers and saddens me. I urge my colleagues not to do this. And I ask unanimous consent to put the opposition letters in, and let me just read who they're from. Paralyzed Veterans of America, University System of Maryland, 43 Education, or I'll give you a copy, you don't, organizations. American Council on Education, National Education Association, American Association of Port Authorities, Small Business Majority, National Council of Farmer Cooperatives, National Federation of Independent Business. Now that's one of yours, I think. American Council of Engineering Companies, 103 religious and denominational organizations, 78 nonprofit organizations, the Fiscal Policy Task Force of the Consortium for Citizens with Disabilities, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the National Farmers Union, the Concord Coalition, American Association of Community Colleges, and the Association of Community College Trustees, Associated Equipment Distributors, the American Cancer Society, and the Cancer Action Network, various healthcare providers, International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, and most importantly, the Fraternal Order of Police. And I'd like to put their particular letter in the record because the first responders are saying that this bill could be devastating to what that they're trying to do, particularly taking away the salt deduction, where they think will impoverish so many of their towns and mayors that they cannot afford equipment anymore for them to be able to do their job.